The phone call came at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, cutting through Maya Chen's dreams like a blade through silk. She fumbled for her phone in the darkness of her studio apartment, her heart already racing before she even saw the unknown number glowing on the screen. Miss Chen, this is Detective Rodriguez with the FBI Financial Crimes Unit. We need to talk. Maya sat up in bed, her bare feet touching the cold hardwood floor. Outside her window, Seattle's downtown lights blurred in the October rain, casting shifting shadows across her small living space. The detective's voice was steady, professional, but there was an urgency underneath that made her stomach clench. I'm sorry, what? The FBI? I think you have the wrong number. Ma'am, we have evidence that your identity has been used in a major insurance fraud case. Someone filed a claim for $400,000 in your name 3 weeks ago. The insurance company flagged it as suspicious and contacted us. We need you to come in immediately. Maya's hand trembled as she reached for the glass of water on her nightstand. The liquid was room temperature, but it felt ice cold as she swallowed. $400,000. The number echoed in her mind like a gong. She made $38,000 a year as a graphic designer at a small nonprofit. She'd never even seen that much money in one place. That's impossible, she whispered. I never filed any insurance claim. I don't even have insurance beyond basic health coverage through my job. That's what we suspected, Miss Chen. Can you be at our Seattle field office by 9 a.m.? This is time sensitive. The longer we wait, the harder it becomes to trace the perpetrator. After she hung up, Maya sat in the darkness for 20 minutes, staring at the rain streaking down her window. Her apartment was quiet except for the hum of her ancient refrigerator and the distant sound of early morning traffic. She'd lived in the same studio for 3 years, ever since moving to Seattle after college. It was small but comfortable, filled with her art supplies, plants she somehow managed to keep alive, and photographs of her family back in Portland. Family. The words stuck in her throat like a fishbone. Maya had always been the responsible one, the daughter who called home every Sunday, who remembered birthdays and anniversaries, who sent care packages to her elderly parents. Her extended family was small but close-knit. Her parents, her younger brother Danny, who lived in San Francisco, and her Aunt Linda, her mother's sister, who had moved to Seattle 2 years ago claiming she wanted to be closer to Maya. Linda Chan Morrison was 53, divorced, and had struggled with money for as long as Maya could remember. She'd bounced between jobs and relationships, always landing on her feet, but never quite stable. When she'd shown up in Seattle with 2 suitcases and a story about a fresh start, Maya had helped her find an apartment and even lent her money for the security deposit. "Just until I get back on my feet, sweetheart," Linda had said, her perfectly manicured hands clutching Maya's over coffee at their favorite cafe. "You know how grateful I am to have you here. You're like the daughter we never had." Maya had felt proud then, mature and capable. She was helping family. It was the right thing to do. But now, sitting in her dark apartment with the FBI detective's words echoing in her ears, a cold suspicion began to creep up her spine like ice water. By 8:30 a.m., Maya was dressed in her best interview outfit, a navy blue blazer her mother had bought her for job interviews, paired with black slacks and flats that were comfortable enough for a potentially long day. She'd barely slept after the phone call, instead spending hours staring at the ceiling and trying to make sense of what was happening. The FBI field office was an imposing glass and steel building in downtown Seattle. Maya had walked past it dozens of times on her way to work, never imagining she'd be incited as anything other than a tourist. The security was intense. Metal detectors, background checks, temporary badges. By the time she was escorted to Detective Rodriguez's office, her palms were sweating despite the October chill. Detective Rodriguez was younger than Maya had expected, probably in his early 40s, with kind eyes and graying temples. His office was sparse but organized, with case files stacked neatly on his desk and a single family photo showing him with a woman and 2 young children at what looked like a baseball game. "Miss Chen, thank you for coming in so quickly." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "I know this must be overwhelming,
Before we begin, I want you to understand that you are not in any trouble. Based on our preliminary investigation, we believe you are a victim of identity theft. Maya nodded, her throat too dry to speak. The insurance claim was filed with Pinnacle Life Insurance for a term life insurance policy allegedly taken out in your name 18 months ago. The beneficiary listed is a Linda Chen Morrison, identified as your aunt. The claim states that you died in a car accident in Oregon on September 15th of this year. The room spun slightly. Maya gripped the arms of her chair, feeling like she might faint. "But I'm obviously not dead," she managed to say. "No, you're not," which is why Pinnacle's fraud investigation team immediately flagged this as suspicious. They couldn't find any record of the accident described in the claim, and when they tried to contact you directly, they discovered you were very much alive and had never heard of this policy. Detective Rodriguez opened a thick file folder and pulled out several documents. Maya could see her name printed clearly on official-looking forms, but the signature at the bottom wasn't hers. "We've been investigating your aunt for the past week, Miss Chen. This isn't her first attempt at insurance fraud. She's used variations of the scheme at least 3 times that we know of, always targeting family members, always claiming accidental death, always with herself as the beneficiary." Maya stared at the papers spread across the desk. Her social security number, her date of birth, her address, all there in black and white, used by someone she trusted to try to steal nearly $500,000. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Linda is family. I helped her when she moved here. We have dinner together every few weeks. She knows my friends, my coworkers. How could she think she'd get away with claiming I was dead when I live in the same city?" "That's what we're trying to figure out," Detective Rodriguez said gently. "In her previous schemes, she targeted family members who lived far away or who she had limited contact with. Using you was either incredibly bold or incredibly stupid. Our working theory is that she was planning to disappear after collecting the money, possibly flee the country." He pulled out another document, this one with Linda's photo paperclipped to the corner. "Linda Chen Morrison has been using various aliases over the past 5 years. Her real name is Linda Chen. She kept your family name but added the Morrison from a brief marriage that ended in 2018. She's originally from Portland, like your family, but she's lived in 7 different states over the past decade, always under different names, always leaving when things got complicated." Maya felt like she was learning about a stranger. The aunt she knew made excellent pad thai, remembered Maya's favorite flowers, and always asked about her art projects with genuine interest. This woman, this criminal, couldn't be the same person. "What happens now?" Maya asked. "Now we build a case. We need your help to understand how she gained access to your personal information and to establish the timeline of your relationship. We also need to protect you. If she realizes we're onto her, she might become desperate." As Maya left the FBI office 3 hours later, her head was spinning with information, instructions, and warnings. She had a business card with Detective Rodriguez's direct number, a case file number to reference, and strict instructions not to contact Linda directly, under any circumstances. The Seattle streets felt different as she walked back to her car. Every face in the crowd seemed suspicious. Every shadow held potential danger. Maya had entered the morning as a trusting young woman who helped her family without question. She was leaving as the victim of a federal crime, perpetrated by someone she loved. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained gray and threatening. Maya sat in her car for several minutes before starting the engine, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror. She looked older somehow, as if the knowledge of Linda's betrayal had etched new lines around her eyes. Her phone buzzed with a text message. For a heart-stopping moment, she thought it might be Linda, somehow sensing that her scheme had been discovered. But it was her coworker Jessica, asking if she was feeling better and if she'd be in the office that afternoon. Maya had called in sick that morning, unable to explain why she needed to meet with the FBI. Now she realized she'd need to construct a careful web of half-truths to protect the ongoing investigation while maintaining some semblance of normal life. She typed back, "Still not great. Taking the full day. See you tomorrow." But as she drove home through Seattle's familiar streets, Maya knew that tomorrow would bring anything but normalcy. Somewhere in this city, her Aunt Linda was going about her day, possibly planning her next move, unaware that her criminal empire was crumbling around her. The question that haunted Maya as she climbed the stairs to her apartment wasn't whether Linda would be caught. Detective Rodriguez had seemed confident about that. The question was how many other families Linda had destroyed. How many other nieces and nephews and cousins had received similar phone calls in the dead of night? And deeper than that, the question that made Maya's chest tight with grief. How long had Linda been planning this? Had every shared meal, every laugh, every moment of apparent affection been calculated manipulation? Or had there been a moment when Linda looked at Maya, really looked at her, and decided that $400,000 was worth more than the trust of the only family member who had welcomed her with open arms? As Maya double-locked her apartment door and drew the curtains closed, she realized she might never know the answer, but she was determined to make sure Linda never had the chance to betray another family member again. The digital clock on her microwave read 12:43 p.m. Less than 9 hours ago, Maya Chen had been a normal young woman with normal problems. Now she was the key witness in a federal investigation, and her life would never be the same.
At the time, it had felt like carrying ant behavior. Linda was organized, responsible in ways Maya was still learning to be. She'd offered to help Maya set up a filing system for important documents, had insisted on making copies just in case. Maya had been grateful for the guidance, touched by Linda's investment in her well-being. Now, those same memories felt poisonous, each act of apparent kindness revealed as calculated manipulation. Maya worked at Pacific Northwest Community Foundation, a small nonprofit focused on environmental education and community gardens. The office was located in a converted warehouse in Georgetown, filled with passionate people who believed in making the world better, one neighborhood at a time. It was exactly the kind of place Maya had dreamed of working when she graduated with her art degree. Meaningful work that utilized her design skills while contributing to causes she cared about. Her cubicle was decorated with photographs of successful community garden projects, thank you notes from local schools, and a small succulent garden she'd cultivated on her desk. Her coworkers had become like family over the past 3 years. Jessica, the development coordinator, who brought homemade cookies every Friday. Marcus, the program director who remembered everyone's birthdays. Sarah, the executive director who had hired Maya despite her limited experience because she saw potential in her portfolio. When Maya arrived at work Wednesday morning, 45 minutes late and looking pale, Jessica immediately noticed something was wrong. "You still look terrible," Jessica said, appearing at Maya's cubicle with a steaming mug of chamomile tea. "Are you sure you should be here? That flu has been going around, and you don't want to give it to everyone else." Maya accepted the tea gratefully, wrapping her cold hands around the warm ceramic. Jessica was 35, married with 2 young children, and had a maternal instinct that extended to everyone in the office. She'd been the first person to befriend Maya when she started working there, including her in group lunches and after-work happy hours, helping her navigate the unspoken social dynamics of a small office. "I'm feeling better," Maya lied. "Just needed an extra day to recover." But concentrating on work proved impossible. Maya stared at her computer screen, supposed to be designing a brochure for the foundation's upcoming fundraising gala, but the words and images blurred together meaninglessly. Every time her phone buzzed with a notification, her heart rate spiked, afraid it might be Detective Rodriguez with news about Linda's arrest, or worse, Linda herself somehow discovering the investigation. Around 11 a.m., Marcus stopped by her desk with a project update. Marcus was in his 40s, a former corporate lawyer who left his high-paying job to work in the nonprofit sector. He was kind, but observant, the type of person who noticed when team members were struggling and found ways to help without making it obvious. "The Morrison Foundation grant proposal is due next week," he said, setting a folder on her desk. "I know you've been working on the graphics, but don't stress if you need more time. Your health comes first." Maya nodded, then froze. Morrison? Linda Chen Morrison? The name that Detective Rodriguez had explained was an alias, borrowed from a brief marriage that had ended years ago. Even here, in her safe space at work, Linda's deception followed her. Actually, Maya said slowly, could someone else take over the Morrison project? I think I need to focus on simpler tasks while I'm recovering. Marcus looked concerned. Of course, no problem. Maya, you know if something's going on in your personal life, you can talk to Sarah or me, right? We're pretty flexible here, especially for family emergencies or health issues.
Family emergencies. If only he knew. Thank you, Maya managed. I might need to take some time off in the next few weeks. I'm dealing with some family stuff. It wasn't entirely a lie, she told herself. Linda was family, and this was definitely stuff. That afternoon, Detective Rodriguez called with an update. Maya stepped into the small break room to take the call, closing the door and speaking in whispers, even though she was alone. We've been monitoring your aunt's activities, he said. She's made several large purchases in the past week. Expensive jewelry, designer clothes, what looks like luggage. We think she's preparing to leave town soon. Maya sank into one of the mismatched chairs around the break room table. The room smelled like burnt coffee and the leftover curry someone had microwaved for lunch. It was such a normal, everyday smell, but it made her feel nauseous. How soon? Hard to say. Could be days, could be weeks. The insurance company is playing along with her claim for now, making it seem like they're processing it normally to give us more time to build the case. But we need to move carefully. If she gets spooked and runs before we have enough evidence, she might disappear completely. What do I need to do? For now, nothing. Continue your normal routine, but don't contact her. If she reaches out to you, be polite but brief. We're monitoring her communications, so we'll know if she tries to involve you in any way. After hanging up, Maya sat in the break room for another 10 minutes, staring at the motivational posters on the wall. Teamwork makes the dream work. Every expert was once a beginner. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. The inspirational messages felt hollow, disconnected from her current reality. How do you believe you can when your own family member has stolen your identity? How do you work as part of a team when you're keeping federal secrets from people who care about you? Maya's relationship with Linda hadn't always been complicated. Growing up, Linda was the fun aunt who showed up at family gatherings with elaborate gifts and exciting stories about her adventures in different cities. She was artistic like Maya, always encouraging her niece's creative pursuits when Maya's parents worried about the practicality of an art career. Don't listen to them, Linda had said during Maya's senior year of high school when the family was pressuring her to choose a more stable major. The world needs artists. It needs people who see beauty and create meaning. Your parents love you, but they don't understand that kind of calling. Linda had been the one to suggest Maya move to Seattle after college, had helped her find her apartment and navigate the job market. She'd been like a mentor, a guide to adult life in a way Maya's parents, loving but traditional, couldn't provide. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was the destruction of Maya's understanding of herself as a good judge of character, as someone who could trust her instincts about people she loved. That evening, Maya walked through Pike Place Market, something she often did when she needed to think. The familiar chaos of vendors calling out prices, tourists taking photos, and the smell of fresh flowers and seafood usually grounded her. Tonight, it felt overwhelming. She found herself standing in front of a flower stall, staring at bouquets of autumn chrysanthemums and late-season roses. The elderly vendor, a woman Maya had seen there for years, smiled at her. "Looking for anything special, dear?" "I don't know," Maya said honestly. "Well, sometimes the flowers choose us," the woman said gently. She selected a small bouquet of white and yellow chrysanthemums, wrapped them in brown paper. "These are for new beginnings, for when the old story doesn't fit anymore." Maya paid for the flowers with tears in her eyes. The vendor's kindness felt like a small miracle in a world that suddenly seemed full of deception and danger. Walking home through the Seattle drizzle, Maya thought about the person she'd been just 2 days ago. That Maya had been optimistic, trusting, eager to help others. She'd believed in the basic goodness of people.
especially family. She'd been proud of her relationship with Linda, had bragged to friends about her cool aunt who was starting over in Seattle. This new Maya felt smaller, more cautious. She found herself looking over her shoulder, wondering who else in her life might not be who they claimed to be. The doubt was insidious, creeping into every relationship and interaction. But underneath the fear and betrayal, something else was growing. Anger. Maya had spent her entire life being accommodating, helpful, putting others' needs before her own. She'd lent Linda money she couldn't afford to lose, had vouched for her with landlords and employers, had opened her social circle to include someone who was systematically planning to profit from her supposed death. Standing in her apartment that night, arranging the chrysanthemums in a mason jar because she didn't own a proper vase, Maya made a decision. She would not let Linda's betrayal make her smaller or more afraid. She would help Detective Rodriguez build the strongest possible case, not just to protect herself, but to prevent Linda from victimizing other families. Maya Chen had always been the helpful one, the accommodating one, the one who smoothed over conflicts and put family first. But Linda had made a critical miscalculation when she chose Maya as her victim. She had underestimated what happens when you push a genuinely kind person too far. Maya's kindness had always been backed by steel. She was her parents' daughter, raised with a strong moral compass and an unshakable belief in justice. Linda had mistaken Maya's generosity for weakness, her trust for naivete. As Maya prepared for bed that night, she looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. She looked tired, stressed, older than her 26 years. But she also looked determined, in a way she'd never seen before. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new revelations about Linda's crimes, new demands from the investigation. But tonight, Maya Chen was no longer just a victim. She was someone who would fight back. The white and yellow chrysanthemums on her kitchen counter seemed to glow in the lamplight, symbols of the new beginning she was creating from the ashes of her trust. Linda had tried to kill Maya on paper, to profit from her fictional death. But Maya was very much alive, and she intended to use that life to make sure justice was served. She fell asleep that night with her phone on the nightstand, Detective Rodriguez's card tucked safely in her wallet, and a growing sense of purpose that surprised her with its strength. Maya Chen was about to discover what she was truly capable of when everything she believed about family loyalty was stripped away.
The first sign that Linda was getting desperate came on Friday morning when Maya arrived at work to find 17 missed calls from her aunt on her phone. The calls had started at 5:23 a.m. and continued until 8:45 a.m., each voicemail becoming progressively more frantic. Maya sat in her car in the foundation's parking lot, her hands shaking as she listened to the messages through her earbuds. Detective Rodriguez had warned her this might happen. That as Linda realized the insurance company wasn't processing her claim as quickly as expected, she might reach out to Maya to gather information or test whether the investigation had been discovered. "Maya, honey, it's Linda. I know it's early, but I really need to talk to you. It's about, well, it's family business. Call me back as soon as you get this." The second message, left 20 minutes later, had a sharper edge. "Maya, I'm getting worried. You usually answer when I call. Is everything okay? I'm dealing with some paperwork issues and I really need to verify some information with you. It's important." By the 10th message, Linda's voice had become strained, almost angry. "Maya, I don't know what game you're playing, but I need you to call me back immediately. This isn't just about me. This affects the whole family. Don't make me call your parents." Maya immediately dialed Detective Rodriguez's number. "She's panicking," he confirmed after Maya read him a few of the messages. "This is actually good news. It means she's feeling pressure from the insurance company, but it also means we need to be more careful. Under no circumstances should you meet with her in person. If she shows up at your work or your apartment, call me immediately and then call 911. "You think she's dangerous? I think she's desperate, and desperate people make unpredictable choices. Miss Chen, we've learned more about your aunt's history. She's not just a con artist. She has a record of intimidation and harassment when her schemes have been threatened.
There was an incident in Arizona where she allegedly threatened a cousin who started asking questions about a similar fraud case. Maya felt cold, despite the October sunshine streaming through her car windows. The parking lot around her was filling up with her coworkers, Jessica pulling up in her minivan, Marcus arriving on his bicycle, Sarah walking from the bus stop with her usual morning coffee. Normal people, living normal lives, unaware that Maya was sitting 20 feet away learning her aunt might be dangerous. What should I do about the calls? Should I respond at all? Send her a single text message. Keep it brief and normal. Tell her you've been dealing with a work crisis this week and you'll call her soon. Don't give her any specific timeline. We need to buy more time. Maya typed the message with trembling fingers. Hi, Linda. Sorry I missed your calls. Crazy work deadline this week. I'll call you soon. Hope you're well. The response came back within minutes. Thank goodness. I was so worried. When can we meet for coffee? I have something important to discuss with you.
Maya showed the message to Detective Rodriguez when she met with him that afternoon at a small cafe near the FBI office, carefully chosen because it was nowhere Linda would expect to find her. She's definitely trying to manipulate you into a meeting, he said, studying the text. Look at the language. Something important to discuss. She's creating urgency and mystery to make you curious enough to agree. Detective Rodriguez looked different outside the federal building, more approachable in jeans and a casual button-down shirt. Maya realized this meeting was probably off the books, a kindness from someone who understood how isolating this experience must be for her. Tell me about your relationship with Linda before she moved to Seattle. How often were you in contact? Maya thought back, sipping her chai latte and trying to organize memories that now felt tainted by deception. Maybe 4 or 5 times a year. She'd call on holidays, send birthday cards. She came to my college graduation. But we weren't super close. She was just around, you know? The aunt who showed up sometimes with interesting stories and generous gifts. When did that change? When she moved here 2 years ago. Suddenly, she wanted to have dinner every few weeks, to be involved in my life. She met my friends, knew my coworkers' names, remembered details about my dating life. I thought, I'm embarrassed. I thought she was finally settling down and wanted family connections. I thought I was helping her build a stable life. You were being manipulated by someone with years of practice, Detective Rodriguez said gently. This isn't your fault, Maya. Linda is a professional con artist. Making people trust her is literally her job. Over the weekend, the pressure intensified. Linda began showing up places Maya frequented, at the coffee shop where Maya bought her morning latte, outside the yoga studio where Maya took Saturday classes, walking past Maya's apartment building multiple times. Maya only knew this because Detective Rodriguez's team was conducting surveillance, but it made her feel hunted in her own neighborhood. On Sunday evening, Linda escalated further. Maya was at home, trying to distract herself by working on a personal art project, when her building's buzzer rang. Through the intercom, Linda's voice sounded sweet and concerned. Maya, honey, it's Linda. I brought you some of that tea you like, the ginger one from the market. Can I come up? We need to talk. Maya's heart pounded as she looked out her window. Linda stood on the sidewalk below, holding a small bag and looking up at Maya's building. She appeared normal, like the aunt Maya had known for years. But now Maya could see the calculation in her posture, the way she'd positioned herself to be visible from Maya's window. Following Detective Rodriguez's instructions, Maya didn't answer the buzzer. Instead, she texted, "Thanks for stopping by. I'm actually just heading out to meet friends. Rain check?" Linda tried the buzzer 4 more times before finally leaving. Monday brought new complications. Maya was at work, trying to focus on a newsletter design, when Jessica approached with a worried expression. Maya, there was a woman here asking about you earlier. She said she was your aunt. She wanted to know what time you usually come in, when you take lunch breaks, that kind of thing. I told her I couldn't give out that information, but she seemed persistent. Maya's stomach dropped. What did she look like? An Asian woman, probably early 50s,
Very put together. Designer purse, expensive clothes. She said she was planning a surprise for you and needed to coordinate timing.
If she comes back, please don't tell her anything about my schedule, Maya said quickly. And maybe, could you let Sarah know? I'm dealing with some family drama, and this woman might cause problems. Jessica's expression shifted from confusion to concern. Maya, are you safe? Do you need help? For a moment, Maya was tempted to tell Jessica everything. The isolation of keeping this secret was wearing on her, making her feel disconnected from the people and places that usually grounded her. But Detective Rodriguez had been clear about the need for discretion until Linda was arrested. I'm okay, Maya said. Just some complicated family stuff. But I might need to take some time off soon to deal with it. That afternoon, Maya met with the insurance company's fraud investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Christine Nakamura, who worked closely with law enforcement on complex cases. They met at Pinnacle Insurance's Seattle office, a glass tower downtown that made Maya feel small and out of place. Your aunt is a sophisticated criminal, Christine explained, as they sat in a conference room overlooking Puget Sound. She's done this before, in multiple states, always targeting family members and always using similar methods. What makes this case unusual is that she chose a victim who lives in the same city where she's trying to collect the money. Christine spread several documents across the conference cable. Copies of the fraudulent insurance application, forged medical records claiming Maya had serious health problems that would justify the large policy, and detailed financial records showing Linda's spending patterns over the past month. She's already spent about $60,000 in anticipation of this payout, Christine continued. Luxury items, travel bookings, even a down payment on a condo in Costa Rica. She was planning to disappear as soon as the check cleared. Maya studied the forged medical records, feeling sick. According to these documents, she had a rare heart condition that made her a high-risk insurance candidate. Linda had somehow obtained Maya's medical history and manipulated it to create a plausible narrative for why a young, healthy woman would need such a large life insurance policy. How did she get my medical information? We're still investigating that. It's possible she had access to your mail, your computer, or your personal documents. Identity thieves often work slowly, gathering information over months or years before making their move. Maya thought about all the times Linda had been in her apartment, all the occasions when she'd offered to help Maya organize her files or handle paperwork. The violation felt overwhelming. Not just the financial crime, but the intimate betrayal of someone systematically cataloging her personal information like items to be stolen. Tuesday brought the most frightening escalation yet. Maya was walking home from work, taking her usual route through the residential neighborhood between the foundation office and her apartment building, when she noticed a car following her. It was a blue sedan, staying about half a block behind her, turning when she turned, stopping when she stopped. Maya ducked into a cafe and called Detective Rodriguez from the bathroom, whispering into her phone while her heart hammered in her chest. "Stay where you are," he instructed. "I'm sending agents to your location immediately. Can you see the license plate?" Maya peered through the cafe's window. The blue sedan was parked across the street, engine running. Through the windshield, she could just make out Linda's profile. "She's out there," she whispered. "She's actually following me." 20 minutes later, 2 FBI agents arrived at the cafe. Maya watched through the window as they approached Linda's car, showed their badges, and engaged her in what appeared to be a brief but intense conversation. Linda's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, anger, fear, and finally a kind of calculating composure that chilled Maya to see.
After a few minutes, Linda drove away, and the agents came into the cafe to speak with Maya. "We've told her to stay away from you," Agent Parker explained. She was a woman about Maya's age with kind eyes and an authoritative presence that made Maya feel safer. "We made it clear that we're aware of her activities and that any further harassment of you will result in immediate arrest." Will that stop her? It might make her more careful, but probably won't stop her completely. "Miss Chen, we need to discuss some additional security measures for you.
Your aunt is becoming increasingly erratic, and we're concerned about your safety. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the woman who had followed her through the streets of our own neighborhood. This wasn't the Linda who had helped her move into her first apartment, who had taught her how to make perfect pad thai, who had listened to her relationship problems with genuine concern. Or maybe it was exactly the same Linda, and Maya had never really known her at all. Around 2 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text message from Linda. "I know you're scared, but this doesn't have to be complicated. We're family. Call me tomorrow and we can work this out together." Maya screenshot the message to send to Detective Rodriguez in the morning, then turned off her phone. But sleep wouldn't come. Outside her window, every car that passed sounded like Linda's sedan. Every footstep on the sidewalk could be someone coming for her. Maya Chen had never thought of herself as someone who lived in fear. She'd moved to a new city alone, built a life and career from nothing, navigated the challenges of adulthood with determination and grace. But Linda's campaign of harassment was wearing her down, making her question her own perception of reality. The worst part wasn't the fear. It was the way Linda's messages still carried traces of the warmth and concern Maya remembered. Even while being investigated by the FBI for identity theft, Linda was still trying to manipulate Maya through their family bond, still counting on Maya's love and loyalty to overcome the evidence of her crimes. As dawn broke over Seattle, Maya sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee and Christine Nakamura's business card. She had been a passive victim in this case, responding to Linda's manipulations and following the investigator's instructions. But looking at the chrysanthemums wilting in their mason jar, Maya realized she was tired of being reactive. It was time to take control of her own story. Maya picked up her phone and typed a message to Linda. "Let's meet for coffee Thursday at 10 a.m., Pine Street Cafe, our usual spot." She didn't send it yet. She'd need to clear it with Detective Rodriguez first. But for the first time since this nightmare began, Maya felt like she was making a choice, instead of simply responding to Linda's increasingly desperate moves. Linda had taught Maya a valuable lesson about family loyalty. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a family member is make sure they face the consequences of their actions. Detective Rodriguez stared at Maya across his desk Wednesday morning, his expression mixing admiration with concern. The coffee between them had gone cold while they discussed Maya's proposal to meet with Linda wearing a wire. "It's dangerous," he said finally. "Your aunt is becoming increasingly unpredictable. We have enough evidence to arrest her now. The forged documents, the fraudulent insurance application, her harassment campaign against you. We don't need to put you at risk." "But you said yourself that she's done this before in other states. If we can get her to confess to the other schemes, to implicate any accomplices, won't that help her other victims?" The truth was more complicated than Maya wanted to admit. She needed to face Linda one more time, to understand how someone she had loved could have calculated her death so coldly. The psychological torture of the past week, the constant fear, the isolation, the way Linda's betrayal had poisoned every family memory, demanded some kind of confrontation.
"There's something else," Detective Rodriguez said, opening a new file. "We've been investigating Linda's financial records more deeply. The Costa Rica condo isn't the only property she's purchased recently. She's also put money down on properties in Thailand and the Philippines, countries without extradition treaties with the United States." Maya felt a chill. She's really planning to disappear completely? It gets worse. We found evidence that she's been researching how to fake her own death. If she collects this insurance money and successfully flees the country, Linda Chen Morrison will essentially cease to exist. She'll reinvent herself somewhere else and probably start the cycle over again with new victims. The weight of responsibility settled on Maya's shoulders. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about preventing Linda from destroying other families, other trusting nieces and nephews who might welcome their aunt's sudden interest in their lives. What would I need to do? Detective Rodriguez explained the plan carefully. Maya would wear a nearly invisible recording device to her meeting with Linda. FBI agents would be positioned throughout the cafe, ready to intervene if Linda became threatening. Maya's role was simply to listen, to let Linda talk, and to ask gentle questions that might prompt her to reveal details about her other crimes. The key is to make her feel safe, Agent Parker added, joining the conversation. Linda thinks she's smarter than everyone else. If she believes she's successfully manipulating you, she might brag about her previous successes or reveal information about accomplices. That afternoon, Maya sent the message to Linda. Let's meet for coffee Thursday at 10 a.m. Pine Street Cafe, our usual spot. I need to understand what's happening. Linda's response came within minutes. Thank God. I've been so worried about you. There are things about our family you don't know, sweetheart. I'll explain everything tomorrow. Even now, even knowing what Linda had done, the message made Maya's chest tight with confused affection. Linda was still playing the role of the caring aunt, still counting on Maya's emotional attachment to override her logical judgment. Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Seattle weather that matched Maya's mood. She'd barely slept, running through possible scenarios and conversations in her mind. The recording device was smaller than a button, nearly invisible against her dark sweater, but Maya felt like it was broadcasting her intentions to the world. Pine Street Cafe was a cozy space with mismatched furniture and local artwork on the walls. Maya had discovered it during her first month in Seattle, and it had become her regular spot for weekend reading and casual meetups with friends. The thought that this place might be forever tainted by whatever happened in the next hour made her stomach twist. Maya arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table near the back where Agent Parker had indicated the surveillance would be optimal. She ordered her usual chai latte and tried to look relaxed, but her hands shook as she pretended to read emails on her phone. Linda arrived exactly on time, looking elegant in a camel-colored coat and designer scarf. She moved through the cafe with confidence, smiling and nodding at other customers as if she belonged there. To anyone watching, she looked like a successful businesswoman meeting her beloved niece for coffee.
Maya, darling, Linda said, leaning down to kiss Maya's cheek. Her perfume was the same expensive floral scent Maya remembered from childhood visits. You look tired. Have you been eating enough? The familiar concern felt like a knife twist. Even knowing about the identity theft, the fake death certificate, the harassment campaign, Maya's body still responded to Linda's maternal energy with a confusing mix of love and betrayal. I've been stressed about work, Maya said carefully. And your calls this week worried me. You've seemed upset about something. Linda settled into her chair, ordering a green tea from the passing barista with the easy charm Maya remembered. When they were alone again, Linda's expression shifted to something more serious. Maya, I need to tell you some things about our family that your parents never shared with you. About why I've been moving around so much, about why I really came to Seattle. Linda reached across the table and took Maya's hands. Her fingers were cold despite her gloves. Your parents think I'm irresponsible, that I can't hold a job or maintain relationships. But the truth is, I've been protecting the family from some very dangerous people. People who would hurt you and Danny if they knew where to find you. Maya stared at her aunt, genuinely shocked by this new fabrication. Linda's ability to construct elaborate lies on the spot was both impressive and terrifying. What kind of dangerous people? It started with my ex-husband, not the Morrison divorce, but before that. A man named David Chen who got involved with organized crime in California. When I left him, I took evidence of his criminal activities, evidence that could put him and his associates in prison for a very long time. Linda's voice dropped to a whisper, and she leaned closer to Maya. Your parents think I'm irresponsible, that I can't hold a job or maintain relationships. But the truth is, I've been protecting the family from some very dangerous people. People who would hurt you and Danny if they knew where to find you." Maya stared at her aunt, genuinely shocked by this new fabrication. Linda's ability to construct elaborate lies on the spot was both impressive and terrifying. What kind of dangerous people? "It started with my ex-husband. Not the Morrison divorce, but before that. A man named David Chen who got involved with organized crime in California. When I left him, I took evidence of his criminal activities, evidence that could put him and his associates in prison for a very long time." Linda's voice dropped to a whisper, and she leaned closer to Maya. "They've been hunting me for years, threatening anyone I get close to. That's why I had to keep moving, keep changing my name. I thought I'd finally lost them when I came to Seattle, but they found me again." Maya felt a sick fascination watching Linda weave this new story. There was real emotion in her voice, genuine seeming fear in her eyes. If Maya hadn't known about the insurance fraud, she might have believed every word. "Linda, that sounds terrifying. Have you gone to the police?" "I can't trust the police. David has connections everywhere. But Maya, this is why I need your help with something. I've been trying to access some money I have hidden away, insurance policies and savings accounts, so I can disappear completely and keep the family safe. But the bureaucracy is incredible, and they keep asking for documentation I can't provide without risking exposure." Here it was. Linda's attempt to justify the insurance fraud as family protection rather than personal greed. "What kind of help do you need?" "Just some information verification. Your social security number, birth certificate details, that kind of thing. I listed you as a contact on some of my accounts, and they need to confirm our relationship. It's completely routine, but it would help me access the funds faster."
But you said these were your accounts. They are, but... Linda paused, and Maya could see her calculating how much of the truth to reveal. "Some of them are life insurance policies I took out on family members. Just small ones for protection. If something happens to any of us, the money can be used to help the others disappear safely." Maya's blood ran cold. "You took out life insurance policies on me and Danny?" "Just as a precaution. Maya, you have to understand, these people are ruthless. If they can't find me, they might target you or your brother. Having some financial resources available could save your lives." The recording device felt heavy against Maya's chest. She hoped it was capturing Linda's casual admission to taking out unauthorized insurance policies on multiple family members. "How much money are we talking about?" Linda's eyes brightened, mistaking Maya's question for interest rather than investigation. "Enough to start over completely. New identities, new cities, maybe even new countries. Maya, I know this sounds overwhelming, but I've been doing this for years. I've helped other family members escape dangerous situations. My cousin Jennifer in Arizona, my nephew Michael in Texas. They're all safe now because I knew how to work the system." Maya's mind raced. Jennifer and Michael. More victims Linda was now framing as willing participants in her schemes? What happened to Jennifer and Michael? Are they okay? "They're fine, living under new names in safe locations. The insurance money I collected helped them disappear completely. Jennifer sends me postcards sometimes. She's running a small art gallery in Canada now. Michael started a tech business in Europe. They're grateful I helped them escape before David's people could find them." Linda was describing her previous fraud victims as success stories, people she'd saved rather than robbed. The delusion was breathtaking. "Linda, this all sounds very dangerous. Are you sure there isn't another way? Maybe we could go to the FBI together, tell them about these threats." Linda's expression shifted instantly, the warm aunt persona cracking to reveal something calculating and cold. "Maya, the FBI can't be trusted. I told you, David has connections everywhere. Going to law enforcement would be signing our death warrants." Her grip on Maya's hands tightened.
Promise me you won't contact any authorities about this. Promise me you'll let me handle it my way." "I promise." Maya lied, her heart pounding as she looked into Linda's eyes and saw a stranger. "Good girl. Now, I need you to come with me to the bank this afternoon. We need to verify some information together, and then I can access the accounts and we can all be safe." Maya realized with growing horror that Linda was trying to escalate the fraud attempt, possibly planning to have Maya unwittingly participate in person. The request felt like a trap closing around her. "I can't this afternoon. I have to work. But maybe this weekend?" "Maya, this can't wait." Linda's voice carried a new edge. "These people are closing in. I've seen the same car outside my apartment 3 times this week. We need to move fast." The car Linda had seen was probably FBI surveillance, but Maya couldn't say that without revealing the investigation. "What if we meet tomorrow instead? I could call in sick to work."
Linda studied Maya's face carefully, and Maya tried to look nervous rather than terrified. "You seem different, Maya. Distant. Is there something you're not telling me?" "I'm just scared," Maya said, which was completely true. "This is a lot to process. The idea that there are people who want to hurt our family?" "I understand, sweetheart, but you have to trust me. I've been protecting this family for years. I know what I'm doing." Linda signaled for the check, her movements sharp and impatient. As she pulled out her wallet, Maya noticed it was stuffed with cash, crisp hundreds that looked freshly withdrawn from a bank. "I'll call you tonight with the details for tomorrow," Linda said, standing to put on her coat. "And Maya, don't mention this conversation to your parents or Danny. The fewer people who know, the safer everyone will be." After Linda left, Maya sat in the cafe for another 20 minutes, shaking slightly as the adrenaline wore off. Agent Parker appeared at her table, sliding into Linda's vacated chair with practiced casualness. "You did great," she said quietly. "We got everything we needed and more. Her admission about other family members, the confession about unauthorized insurance policies, the attempt to involve you in bank fraud, it's all recorded." "She really believes her own lies," Maya said wonderingly. "The way she talks about Jennifer and Michael, she's convinced herself she helped them instead of victimizing them." "That's common with serial fraudsters. They develop elaborate justifications for their behavior to avoid confronting the reality of what they're doing to people." Agent Parker's radio crackled softly, and she listened to a brief message before turning back to Maya. "We're moving in for the arrest tonight. Linda's been frantically making phone calls since she left here, to banks, travel agencies, and some numbers we haven't been able to trace yet. She's accelerating her timeline, which means she's probably planning to disappear within the next few days." Maya felt a complex mix of relief and sadness. The investigation was finally coming to an end, but it also meant the complete destruction of her relationship with the only aunt she had ever known. What happens now? "Now you go home, try to get some rest, and wait for my call. This will probably be over by tomorrow morning." As Maya walked home through the Seattle drizzle, she thought about the woman who had just tried to manipulate her into participating in a federal crime while claiming to protect her from imaginary mobsters. The Linda in the cafe had been confident, persuasive, almost believable in her concern for family safety. But Maya had also seen the moment when Linda's mask slipped, when the predator showed through the caring aunt facade. That glimpse of cold calculation had been more frightening than any of Linda's harassment or threats. Maya realized she was grieving, not just for the relationship she had lost, but for the person she thought Linda was. The aunt who had encouraged her art, who had helped her navigate young adulthood, who had made her feel less alone in a new city. That person had never really existed. She had been a character Linda played, a role carefully designed to earn Maya's trust and access to her personal information. The grief felt like mourning someone who had died, even though Linda was very much alive and about to be arrested for her crimes.
By the time Maya reached her apartment, her phone was buzzing with messages from Jessica asking if she was okay and from her mother wanting to chat about weekend plans.
Normal life was continuing around her, people who cared about her going about their daily routines, unaware that Maya had just helped the FBI gather evidence against her own family member. Maya looked at her reflection in her bathroom mirror and saw someone who had changed fundamentally over the past week. The trusting young woman who had worried about Linda's well-being was gone, replaced by someone who understood that love and manipulation could look identical from the outside. She was no longer the naive niece who could be easily deceived. But she also wasn't ready to become cynical or suspicious of everyone around her. Somewhere between those two extremes, Maya Chen was becoming someone new, someone who could extend trust carefully and withdraw it when necessary, someone who understood that protecting herself and others sometimes required making difficult choices about family loyalty. The recording device felt lighter as she carefully removed it and placed it in the envelope Agent Parker had provided. Tomorrow, Linda Chen Morrison would be arrested and charged with multiple federal crimes. The insurance fraud scheme would be exposed, and hopefully Linda's other victims would finally get justice. But tonight, Maya was alone with the complicated grief of losing someone who had never really existed in the first place. The call came at 6:23 a.m. on Friday morning. Maya was already awake, had been since 4 a.m., lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the rain against her windows. When Detective Rodriguez's name appeared on her phone screen, she answered on the first ring. Linda Chen Morrison was arrested at 5:47 a.m. at her apartment, he said without preamble. She's been charged with wire fraud, identity theft, mail fraud, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. She's currently being held without bail pending arraignment. Maya sat up in bed, pulling her knees to her chest. How did she react? She was surprisingly calm, almost like she'd been expecting it. She asked for a lawyer immediately and hasn't said anything since. But Maya, we found a lot more evidence at her apartment than we anticipated. Detective Rodriguez's voice carried a weight that made Maya's stomach clench. What kind of evidence? Identity documents for at least 12 other people. Driver's licenses, social security cards, birth certificates, all professionally forged. She had detailed files on dozens of potential targets, including complete financial profiles and family relationship charts. This operation was much larger than we initially suspected. Maya felt dizzy. 12 other people? Family members from different states, different surnames. She's been working this scheme for at least 8 years, moving from state to state and targeting extended family networks. The dollar amount of her confirmed frauds is now approaching $2 million. $2 million. Maya tried to process the scope of Linda's crimes. This wasn't desperation or temporary greed. It was a sophisticated criminal enterprise that had destroyed multiple families over nearly a decade. There's more, Detective Rodriguez continued. We found evidence that she was planning to fake her own death after collecting your insurance money. She had forged death certificates already prepared, complete with detailed scenarios about how Linda Chen Morrison would supposedly die in Costa Rica. She was going to disappear completely and start over with a new identity. Maya thought about their conversation in the cafe yesterday. Linda's casual mention of helping other family members disappear to safety. Even her fabricated story about protect family from dangerous criminals had contained a grain of truth. Linda had been planning to vanish without a trace. What happens to the other victims? That's where it gets complicated. Some of them don't even know they were victimized. Linda was careful to target family members she had limited contact with, people who might not discover the fraudulent policies for years. We're working with law enforcement in multiple states to identify all the victims and notify them. Maya dressed mechanically and walked to work through Seattle's morning rush hour, her mind struggling to process the magnitude of Linda's betrayal. The woman she'd trusted, the aunt who had seemed interested in building a genuine relationship, had been systematically cataloging Maya's personal information alongside dozens of other potential victims. At the foundation office, Maya found herself unable to concentrate on anything. She sat at her desk staring at her computer screen, but the words and images blurred together meaninglessly. Jessica appeared with coffee and a concerned expression. Maya, you look like you haven't slept in days. What's going on? For the first time since the investigation began, Maya felt ready to share at least part of the truth. My aunt was arrested this morning for fraud. It's been a difficult week. Oh my God, Maya! The woman who came here asking about you? Yeah, she was using my identity to commit insurance fraud. The FBI has been investigating her for weeks. That's why you've seemed so stressed lately. Maya, why didn't you tell us? We could have helped, at least provided emotional support. Maya looked around the office, at Marcus discussing community garden funding with a group of volunteers, at Sarah typing rapidly on her laptop while simultaneously taking a phone call, and at the dozens of photos and thank you notes covering the walls. This place represented everything Linda's crimes had tried to destroy: genuine human connection, trust, people working together to make their community better. I couldn't talk about it while the investigation was ongoing, but I think I'm going to need some time off to deal with the aftermath. Sarah appeared at Maya's cubicle, having overheard the last part of the conversation. Take whatever time you need. Family emergencies are exactly what our leave policies are designed for. And Maya, if you need anything, references for lawyers, help with paperwork, someone to just listen, we're here. The genuine concern and support from her coworkers was overwhelming after a week of isolation and deception. Maya felt tears threatening and excused herself to the bathroom, where she stood in front of the mirror trying to regain her composure. The woman looking back at her seemed older, more guarded than the person who had arrived at work just a week ago, but there was also something stronger in her expression, a resilience that hadn't been there before. Maya spent the afternoon meeting with Christine Nakamura at the insurance company, providing additional documentation and testimony for Linda's prosecution. The conference room overlooking Puget Sound felt different this time, less intimidating, more like a place where justice was being carefully constructed. Your cooperation has been invaluable, Christine said as they reviewed Maya's statement. Without your willingness to participate in the recorded conversation, we might not have been able to connect Linda to her other victims. She was very careful to keep her various schemes separated. What will happen to the other families she defrauded? That's going to be a long process. Some of the insurance companies will likely honor the fraudulent claims if the victims' families weren't complicit, essentially eating the losses rather than putting grieving families through legal battles. Others might face years of litigation. It's one of the most devastating aspects of this type of crime. The victims suffer long after the perpetrator is caught.
Maya thought about families across the country who would soon receive phone calls similar to the one that had awakened her a week ago. Children and spouses who would learn that their loved one's death had been used as a source of profit by someone they trusted. That evening, Maya called her parents in Portland. The conversation was one of the most difficult of her life. "Linda did what?" Her mother's voice cracked through the phone. Maya explained the situation carefully, watching her parents' understanding shift from disbelief to horror to a kind of protective anger that reminded her why she loved them so much. "Maya, sweetheart, are you safe? Do you need to come home for a while?" her father asked. "I'm okay, Dad. The FBI caught her. She can't hurt anyone else now." "But she hurt you!" her mother said fiercely. "She violated our family's trust in the worst possible way. I can't believe I welcomed her into our home, let her around my children." Maya realized her parents were experiencing their own version of the betrayal she'd been grappling with all week. Linda hadn't just victimized Maya. She'd exploited the entire family's natural inclination to help a relative in need. "Mom, this isn't anyone's fault except Linda's. She was a professional criminal. She fooled all of us." "But I should have seen something," her mother insisted. "The way she was always asking personal questions, always needing help with paperwork.
I thought she was just disorganized, but now I wonder what information she was gathering about all of us. Maya's brother Danny called later that evening from San Francisco, having heard about Linda's arrest from their parents. I can't wrap my head around this, he said. Remember when she came to my graduation? She gave me that expensive watch and seemed so proud of me. Was all of that fake? I don't think it was all fake, Maya said slowly, surprising herself with the admission. I think Linda is someone who's capable of genuine affection, but who prioritizes her own survival above everything else. She probably did care about us, in her way, but when it came down to choosing between our well-being and her financial gain, the choice was easy for her. That almost makes it worse. Like, if she'd been completely cold and calculating, at least it would make sense. But the idea that she could care about us and still do this? I understood exactly what he meant. A stranger stealing your identity was a violation, but manageable. A family member doing it while maintaining a loving relationship was a betrayal that cut much deeper. Over the weekend, Maya met with Agent Parker to discuss the ongoing investigation and her potential role in Linda's prosecution. Her lawyer is already talking about plea negotiations, Agent Parker explained, as they sat in a quiet coffee shop far from Maya's usual haunts. Linda's facing 20 to 30 years in federal prison if convicted on all charges. Her best option is probably to cooperate with our investigation into her accomplices and provide information about her other victims. She had accomplices? Almost certainly. The quality of the forged documents suggests professional assistance. The complexity of moving money between different states and setting up fake identities usually requires help from people with specialized skills. If Linda cooperates, we might be able to dismantle a larger criminal network.
Maya thought about the sophisticated operation Detective Rodriguez had described. Dozens of victims, professionally forged documents, detailed financial profiles. Linda hadn't been working alone. What would cooperation look like? She'd have to provide complete information about everyone who helped her, every crime she committed, every victim she targeted. In exchange, she might receive a reduced sentence, maybe 10 to 15 years instead of 30. Maya felt conflicted about the possibility of Linda receiving a lighter sentence. Part of her wanted maximum punishment for the woman who had caused so much pain, but another part recognized that Linda's cooperation could help identify other victims and prevent future crimes. There's something else you should know, Agent Parker continued. Linda has been asking to speak with you. Her lawyer says she wants to apologize and explain her actions. You're under no obligation to meet with her, but if you choose to, we can arrange it safely. Maya's immediate instinct was to refuse. She'd said everything she needed to say to Linda at their recorded conversation at the cafe. But as the days passed, she found herself thinking more about Agent Parker's offer. 3 weeks after Linda's arrest, Maya made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She agreed to meet with Linda at the Federal Detention Center, with lawyers and FBI agents present. The meeting room was sterile and fluorescent lit, with a metal table bolted to the floor and security cameras in every corner. Linda entered wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back severely, and her face free of the careful makeup Maya remembered. She looked older, smaller, diminished by the institutional environment. Maya, said Linda softly, sitting across from her at the metal table. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. Maya studied her aunt's face, looking for signs of manipulation or performance. Instead, she saw something she'd never expected: genuine shame. I wanted to understand. I needed to hear you explain how you could do this to people you claimed to love. Linda's lawyer, a tired-looking man in an ill-fitting suit, had advised her to keep the conversation brief and avoid admitting to specific crimes, but Linda seemed to have abandoned caution.
I started telling myself I was protecting the family, Linda said, her voice barely above a whisper. When I first got into trouble financially, when I realized how easy it was to manipulate insurance systems, I convinced myself that I was creating a safety net for everyone I cared about. But you were stealing from us. Yes. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I was stealing from you, and I was lying to myself about my motivations. The truth is, Maya, I was addicted to the money and the lifestyle it provided. I was addicted to being someone important, someone who could solve problems and make big gestures. Maya felt a familiar confusion, the same mix of anger and sympathy that had characterized her entire relationship with Linda. What about the other families? Jennifer and Michael and all the others? They were strangers to me, really, distant relatives I barely knew. It was easier to justify taking from them because they felt abstract, not real. Linda looked directly at Maya for the first time since entering the room. But you were different. You welcomed me into your life, trusted me, cared about me, and I repaid that by planning to profit from your fictional death. Why me? If you really cared about me, why not choose someone else? Linda was quiet for a long moment, and Maya could see her weighing how much truth to reveal. Because you were the perfect victim, she said finally. Young, single, financially naive, isolated from family, because you trusted me completely and never questioned my interest in your personal information, and because Linda's voice cracked. Because I knew that if something went wrong, if I got caught, you were strong enough to survive it.
The admission was both devastating and oddly comforting. Linda had chosen Maya not because she cared about her least, but because she believed Maya could withstand the betrayal. It was a twisted compliment that revealed both Linda's criminal calculation and her genuine understanding of Maya's character. I can't forgive you, Maya said quietly. Not for what you did to me, and especially not for what you did to those other families. But I hope you cooperate with the investigation. I hope you help catch the people who helped you, and I hope you provide closure for your other victims. Linda nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm going to tell them everything, all of it. It won't bring back the money I stole or repair the trust I broke, but it's the only thing I can do now. As Maya left the detention center, she felt a sense of closure she hadn't expected. The woman she'd just spoken with was neither the loving aunt Maya remembered, nor the cold criminal she'd feared. Linda was a deeply flawed person who had made terrible choices and would spend much of the rest of her life in prison as a result. But she was also someone who had finally stopped lying to herself about her motivations, someone who seemed genuinely committed to helping repair some of the damage she had caused. It wasn't redemption, exactly, but it was recognition of her crimes, of their impact, and of her responsibility to make whatever amends were possible. Maya drove back to Seattle through the autumn rain, past familiar landmarks that no longer felt threatening. Pike Place Market, the Space Needle, the waterfront, where she'd walked so many times while processing the trauma of the past month. The city looked the same, but Maya's relationship to it had changed. She was no longer the trusting young woman who helped family members without question, but she also wasn't the fearful victim who jumped at every phone call and looked over her shoulder on every street corner. She was someone new, someone who had faced betrayal and survived it, someone who understood that love and trust were gifts to be given thoughtfully rather than automatically. The chrysanthemums on her kitchen counter had finally died, their white and yellow petals brown and scattered across the table. Maya threw them away and made a mental note to buy fresh flowers, something bright and resilient, something that could thrive even in Seattle's gray winter light. 3 months later, Linda pled guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence of 15 years in federal prison. Her cooperation led to the arrest of 4 accomplices and the identification of 17 additional victims across 8 states. The criminal network she'd been a part of had stolen more than $5 million from families over a 12-year period. Maya testified at Linda's sentencing hearing not to ask for leniency or harsh punishment, but to speak for all the victims whose lives had been disrupted by Linda's crimes. Linda Chen Morrison taught me that family loyalty is a two-way street. She took advantage of our family's natural inclination to help each other, and she destroyed that trust not just for me, but for everyone who loved her. The sentence you give her today won't just be punishment for her crimes, it will be a message to other people who might be tempted to exploit their family relationships for financial gain. Linda listened to Maya's statement with tears in her eyes, but Maya no longer felt responsible for Linda's emotions. That relationship was over, severed not by anger or hatred, but by the simple recognition that some betrayals cannot be overcome. After the hearing, Maya walked out of the federal courthouse into bright spring sunshine. Seattle was coming alive after its long winter, with cherry blossoms blooming in Pioneer Square and the Sound sparkling blue in the distance. Maya Chen had survived identity theft, federal investigation, and family betrayal. She had learned that trust was not naivety, and that protecting herself was not selfishness.
Discovered reserves of strength she hadn't known she possessed, and built new relationships based on genuine rather than manipulated affection. The woman who had once worried about being kind enough, helpful enough, family-oriented enough, had learned to worry instead about being wise enough to recognize when kindness was being exploited and strong enough to withdraw it when necessary. Maya was ready for whatever came next. 1 year later. The gallery's opening was everything Maya had dreamed of when she was a college student with big artistic ambitions and no clear path forward. The converted warehouse space in Seattle's Georgetown district was filled with her mixed media pieces, paintings and collages that explored themes of identity, family, and the difference between authentic and performed emotion. The series was titled Borrowed Lives, and it had emerged from her processing of Linda's betrayal through art. Maya stood near her largest piece, a 6-foot canvas that incorporated fragments of official documents, family photographs, and abstract representations of the paper trail Linda had used to steal identities. The gallery was crowded with friends, co-workers from the foundation, and strangers who had heard about the show through word of mouth and local art blogs. "This piece is incredible," said a woman Maya didn't recognize, studying the canvas intently. "There's something so haunting about the way you've layered the personal documents with the abstract elements. It feels like watching someone's life being dismantled and reconstructed." Maya smiled, accepting the compliment while feeling the familiar, complicated emotions her art evoked. Creating the Borrowed Lives series had been therapeutic but difficult, requiring her to revisit trauma she'd rather forget while transforming it into something meaningful. "The artist's statement mentions identity theft," the woman continued. "Is this based on personal experience?" "It is," Maya said simply. She'd learned to acknowledge her experience without needing to explain every detail to strangers. Jessica appeared at Maya's elbow with a glass of wine and a proud smile. "Maya, the review in Seattle Met is incredible. They're calling you an emerging voice in contemporary trauma art and comparing your work to some major established artists." Maya had been trying not to check her phone all evening, but the validation felt wonderful after months of uncertainty about whether her personal story could translate into universally compelling art. "And," Jessica continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "there's a collector here who's asking about purchasing 3 pieces. Maya, you might actually be able to quit your day job soon." The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Maya loved her work at the foundation, but she'd always dreamed of supporting herself through her art. The trauma of Linda's betrayal had unexpectedly become the catalyst for the most honest and powerful work she'd ever created. Maya moved through the gallery crowd, accepting congratulations and discussing her work with genuine enthusiasm.
Near the back of the space, she noticed a familiar figure studying one of her smaller pieces, Detective Rodriguez, out of uniform in khakis and a button-down shirt. "Detective Rodriguez, I didn't expect to see you here." "Miguel," he said with a warm smile, "and I wouldn't have missed this. After everything you went through, seeing you transform that experience into something this powerful, it's remarkable."
They stood together looking at the piece he'd been examining, a delicate collage incorporating fragments of Linda's forged documents alongside images of Maya's actual family photos. The contrast between authentic memories and manufactured deception was stark and moving. "Any word on the other victims Linda helped identify?" Maya asked. "Most of them are doing well. The insurance companies settled with the families, and several of Linda's accomplices received significant prison sentences. Your testimony was crucial in securing those convictions." Maya nodded, feeling a deep sense of completion. Linda was now 3 years into her 15-year sentence, and the criminal network she'd been part of had been effectively dismantled. "There's something else," Miguel continued. "Linda's been writing letters, not to you, she knows better than that, but to the court, to victim services, expressing genuine remorse and offering to speak to other families about recognizing manipulation. It seems like prison has given her time to truly understand the impact of her actions." Maya felt a complex mix of emotions at this news. She'd never respond to any communication from Linda, but knowing her aunt was using her experience to potentially help others felt like a small measure of justice. As the evening wound down, Maya stood alone for a moment in front of her centerpiece painting. Sarah approached, having stayed late to help with the gallery reception. "I keep thinking about how different you are from the person who started working with us," Sarah said thoughtfully. "Not worse or better, just more yourself, if that makes sense. Like you figured out who you really are when everything false was stripped away." Maya considered this observation. The trusting young woman who had helped Linda without question was gone, but so was the fearful victim who had looked over her shoulder constantly. In their place was someone who understood that survival sometimes required difficult choices, that kindness needed to be paired with wisdom, and that family loyalty was meaningless without mutual respect. "I think Linda actually gave me a gift," Maya said, surprising herself with the admission. "Not intentionally, but by forcing me to confront how easily I could be manipulated, she taught me to trust my own judgment. The art I'm making now, the relationships I'm building, they're all more authentic because I understand the difference between real and performed connection." As Maya locked up the gallery that night, she felt genuinely grateful for her life, not for Linda's betrayal, but for her own resilience in surviving it. The young woman who had answered that 3:47 a.m. phone call 13 months ago could never have imagined standing in her own gallery opening surrounded by people who valued her art and her authentic self. Maya Chen had learned that identity couldn't be stolen, only borrowed temporarily. Her real identity, forged through surviving betrayal and choosing trust carefully, belonged entirely to her.